Hatton Garden. As the hunt for these men intensifies, the head of the flying squad speaks exclusively to Crimewatch. Also, the brutal rapist who snatched a teenager from a busy street.
This person is a very, very dangerous offender who needs to be caught extremely quickly.
And the organised crime gangs behind the latest internet scam.
They are told that unless they pay money, the videos will be left online for the whole world to see.
Live for the next hour, this is Crimewatch. Good evening and welcome to Crimewatch. We are live for the next 60 minutes with the latest crime investigations, news and appeals. The studio is full of detectives from all across the country hoping that you can help to crack their cases tonight.
We've a fresh batch of wanted faces for you to track down and some shocking CCTV this month, including the moment a gang knifed an autistic boy because of the way he looked at them.
They was saying, "What am I looking at?" He ran after me, and then he stabbed me in the neck.
And I'm back with the latest updates, amongst them an incredible result for the heptathlete Kelly Southerton, whose gold medal was discovered by a postie the morning after
Got to the post box,
programme.
opened the box, and something caught my eye in the corner, which I found was 2 medals.
But we begin tonight with a case that has shocked even the most hardened detectives. Just last month, a teenager was snatched from a busy street in Leeds, hit 18 times over the head with a rock and raped. The whole horrific attack was caught on CCTV. We know what this man looks like. We must catch him tonight.
I've stopped sleeping because I can see what happened when I'm trying to sleep. I think about the way he grabbed me.
The city of Leeds. Police here are working around the clock to catch a dangerous rapist.
I was walking around. I went to the petrol station. I bought stuff from there. I think I went to the park, sit down for a bit. Then it was getting dark. I went to the bus stop. I was waiting there for the bus to go home. I couldn't scream. I couldn't breathe. And then he threw me on the floor. All I could move was my legs. You know how a fish flaps? That's how it was. I had mud on my hands and in my nails. Then I think he hit me on my head. I'm not really sure. I looked up and no one was there. I thought I was in a dream. Thought I was having a dream. I felt really dizzy, feeling sick. I saw these 2 girls. They helped me.
We're very lucky that we're not dealing with a murder investigation at the moment. She sustained what I can only describe as a very, very serious head injury indeed. So much so that that head injury had to be treated in hospital for over a week. This is an enormous investigation, the scale of which we've not seen for a number of years in West Yorkshire. We have had over 100 officers involved in the case, and presently I have 40 detectives completely assigned to this all the time.
The attack happened in a garden behind the bus stop, just metres from the busy main road.
We did find quite a great deal of physical evidence in the garden. We also found the rock that was used to hit the victim over the head with in the garden there itself that was left at the scene. But what became apparent very quickly was the presence of a CCTV camera on the front of the house. We did have the entire offence caught on camera. What you see is the offender carry the victim into the garden, throw her to the ground with such force that she fractures her hip. He then strikes her over the head some 18 times with a rock, and he then rapes her in the garden, and that lasts for some 7 minutes. It's absolutely devastating viewing. And he then gets up, and as calmly as you like and as nonchalantly as you like, he leaves the garden and continues on the same route that he took as he approached the crime scene. And I think the chilling thing is the amount of people that are passing the garden at the time who were oblivious to what was going on, the amount of traffic that was passing, the fact that a bus pulls into the bus stop and a large number of people get off that bus. And so the offender either seems oblivious to that or just simply doesn't care. And I think that's the most chilling aspect of the case.
Detectives believe this was not the only woman the rapist had in his sights that night. Earlier, he had been in the city centre.
I was making my way home along Wellington Street. As I was coming to the crossroads, I saw this guy coming round the corner. I could tell straight away in his eyes that there was something not quite right. As I crossed that road, I could see he wasn't to my side anymore, and I sort of felt like he was quite close behind me. When I got to the second crossing, I felt quite uncomfortable and knew that something was wrong. My first instinct was to just go to the bus stop. With it being quite late on a night, I was really worried that there wouldn't be anyone there. Thankfully there was, so I took the decision to just wait. He followed me and started looking at the timetable. And then he sort of turned round and walked back down the street away from me.
Following this near miss, the attacker wasted no time in finding an alternative target.
I recall it being a typical Friday night. I was suddenly aware of a man to my right, at my shoulder. He had an unblinking stare. I paused at the traffic lights. Suddenly, there was the same guy. I saw Tesco's on my right. I took a couple of steps past the entrance and turned around. He was there, in front of me. I crashed into Tesco's. I decided to move. I was still looking around, and then I saw him. I just wanted to get out of there. I stopped at the bus stop. He was looking straight at me. I boarded the bus and sat downstairs.
The two ladies rang in to tell us they had been followed by the same man earlier in the evening. Detectives then trawled CCTV images. Now we've identified probably 3 near misses where this individual has been stalking young women, looking to attack them. Absolutely no doubt in my mind that was what he was setting out to do.
Police now need your help to catch this man.
Be under no illusions, this person is a very, very dangerous offender who needs to be caught extremely quickly, because I fear that he will strike again, and with potentially more devastating consequences than we've already seen.
The rapist's 18-year-old victim is facing a long and slow recovery.
My head is always hurting. I haven't been able to stop thinking about what happened. How could he do that? Doesn't a woman have a right to catch a bus? I worry about what if he does it again.
How could he do that? Well, I'm joined now by Detective Superintendent Nick Wallen. A vile and truly shocking case. An 18-year-old, how's this young woman doing now?
It's an absolutely appalling case, and as you say, her injuries were absolutely devastating, and there was a period of time when we actually feared that she wouldn't recover from those injuries. I'm pleased to say she's recovering well now. Her physical injuries are healing, but the mental injuries are going to take her a lot longer to recover from.
OK, let's do something about this tonight. You mentioned a third prospective victim there, and you want to show some CCTV footage
Yes.
that we haven't seen before. Just tell us what we're seeing here, Nick.
Yeah, detectives trawled CCTV images in Leeds city centre, and what we found is there's a pedestrian walkway between Whitehall Road and Wellington Street in Leeds, and we found our offender walking extremely closely behind a third young woman. And I'm asking now if that young woman recognises herself potentially or remembers this and she's watching tonight, then please can she ring in. And similarly, if anybody else recognises these images and they think they might have been followed, Friday the 6th of March, please call us.
Really important. Do you think that, I mean, he was trawling around town that night, do you think he's local?
I think he knew the city centre of Leeds, but it may well be that he was a person who was new to the city, maybe even new to the country, and may now have left the city of Leeds entirely. So that's why we are here to appeal to the people of the United Kingdom. If you recognise this person, if you recognise the clothing, please ring in. We have a DNA profile of this offender, so we can disassociate people from the investigation really quickly.
That's really important, isn't it? Accuracy is the key here. You've got an e-fit from what all these women have told you. Just take us through a description briefly.
Yes, we do. So the offender is 5'7" tall. He's of dark skin, he may be Asian, he may be of mixed race. He was wearing on the night a green Puma hooded top, which is similar to the one that I'm showing you here.
OK.
We also know that he was possibly wearing these Nike Huarache trainers. So again, if you look at the images, you recognise him from those or any of these items of clothing, please call us.
It's really important, Nick. Thanks very much for now. Let's just take one more look at this man. He has to be caught. If you can help, I would urge you, please, pick up the phone tonight, do the right thing, call our studio, 0500 600 600, and remember, if you've been a victim of crime yourself, you can always call victim support. Let me give you their number, 0808 16 89 111.
Now, the big crime story everyone is talking about this month is, of course, the Hatton Garden safety deposit heist. It's one of the most daring heists in living memory in London's most exclusive jewellery district.
A gang of burglars are thought to have escaped with a
Jewels
big
and gold worth millions were stolen.
Police say the thieves used heavy cutting equipment as part of the robbery.
Jewellery and antiques thought to be worth tens of millions of pounds stolen over the course of the Easter bank holiday weekend. These are the suspects. Their crime, truly spectacular. Security at the firm is vast, but it wasn't enough to stop them. The thieves disabled a communal lift in the building, climbing down the lift shaft into the basement. There, using one of these heavy-duty drills, they cut through 1/2 metre of reinforced concrete, accessing more than 70 safety deposit boxes from the heavily fortified vault. The crime went undiscovered until the Tuesday morning, when staff returned to work. And this is the scene that greeted them. Covered in dust and debris, the floor strewn with discarded deposit boxes and power tools. The scale and audacity of the theft ranks it alongside other infamous heists. In 2000, a team raided an exhibition in London's Millennium Dome. They planned to steal around £200 million worth of diamonds, but the flying squad were waiting for them. In 2009, two well-dressed men entered Graff Jewellers on London's New Bond Street and made off with more than £40 million worth of jewels. And in Cannes, France, an armed thief stole jewels worth around €100 million from an exhibition at a hotel in 2013. As the Hatton Garden investigation delves deeper, police say focus should be on the victims, whose loss of precious heirlooms and livelihoods makes this heist more than just an audacious crime to be glamorised and marvelled at.
What about that? With me now is Detective Superintendent Craig Turner, who leads the flying squad, is leading this investigation. He's giving his first interview on the Hatton Garden case exclusively to Crimewatch tonight. Detective, first of all, thanks for taking the time, because I'm sure you and your team are incredibly busy. There's so much hype and speculation surrounding this case. What do you know for sure? What can you tell us?
This was a particularly ambitious burglary, to say the least, and has affected so many victims. People's properties being taken, people's pensions, people's heirlooms obviously can't be replaced by insurance firms. We may well be misled. This is carried out by almost an Ocean's 11 type team. But in essence, there are victims behind this, and these are callous thieves.
Yeah, it is a crime. Let's take a look at the CCTV. Just talk us through this, would you?
We released 6 images of suspects. The suspects entered the building at approximately 9 p.m. on the 2nd of April. They left on the Good Friday at about 8 a.m. They then returned to the building on Saturday the 4th of April at approximately 10 p.m. and left on the Easter Sunday at approximately 6:40 a.m.
There are some extraordinary pictures from inside the vault, and we've also got pictures tonight, not just of the vault and of this great hole that was drilled, but you actually are showing us for the first time tonight a picture of the drill itself. Now, these are all fascinating, but we're here for your appeal tonight. Who do you actually want to talk to tonight on Crimewatch?
We want to talk to members of the public that may have been in the Hatton Garden area, that may have seen anything suspicious. They may have seen that the loading or unloading of any heavy equipment. In particular, as we can see here, is the Hilti DD350 drill. That's a specialised bit of equipment.
Yeah.
And I'm appealing to a member of the criminal community. People may have seen them being in possession of this drill. From inside the scene, they weren't particularly practised in it. They would have had to practice drilling those holes.
Just very briefly, you've brought along one of the safety deposit boxes actually from the vault itself. What for the victims now, for these people who've lost stuff that were very treasured and often valuable possessions?
We're contacting all of those victims. We've identified all but 6. I'll appeal to any of those victims that haven't been contacted by police to contact the incident room.
And finally and exclusively, you want to announce a reward?
Yes, I'd like to announce an award for £20,000 that leads to the arrest and conviction of those people responsible.
OK, let's see what we can do. Thanks for joining us tonight, Detective. If you can help in any way with this extraordinary case, then please do call us using those Crimewatch numbers on the screen now.
Wanted faces now, starting with William Kerr, although he uses many different names. He was jailed for life for murdering a woman in Leeds in 1995 and released early from prison on licence. But he's absconded from the probation hostel he was staying in and is now wanted back in prison. Kerr is 53 and has a Scottish accent, but has links to London, West Yorkshire and Humberside. He's described as dangerous, so should not be approached. Next is Jeffrey North. The 41-year-old was arrested in connection with a conspiracy to import a large quantity of cocaine into the UK, but he's failed to answer his police bail. North has distinctive, prominent ears, and although he's originally from Hertfordshire, he's known to travel to London and Spain. Third tonight is Karaman Hassan. Detectives want to speak to him about the rape of a woman at a home in Cardiff in May last year. Hassan is 33 next week and originally from Iran, but has contacts across South Wales, Bristol and London. He's also dangerous, so just dial 999 if you know where he is. Finally, for now, we have Andre Jerome Chambers. Detectives want to speak to him about a gun, ammunition and drugs with a street value of around £25,000, which were all found at a flat in London. Chambers is 32 and sometimes calls himself Dominic Banton. He also has a scar on the left side of his face and a crucifix tattoo on his left arm. We'll go through the rest of the lineup a little later, but if you know where any of them are, please get in touch straight away using the numbers on screen.
Now, just last week, a new law came into force, specifically making revenge porn illegal in England and Wales. Although offenders could now face up to 2 years in prison, it's unlikely to stem the growth in other forms of internet blackmail. Instead of disgruntled ex-partners, a sophisticated crime known as sextortion is being carried out now by highly organised gangs, and it seems to be on the rise. Guest reporter Folami Prihe, who has first-hand experience of what it's like to be exposed in the worst possible way, now investigates.
My name is Folami Prihe. I'm a single mum living and working in Bristol. My life was pretty ordinary until last year when something devastating happened to me. My ex-partner posted intimate photos of me online for the whole world to see. I was a victim of what's now known as revenge porn. After splitting from my partner, he decided to upload very private pictures of me to the web. And just like hundreds of other women, my images were then reposted on dozens of sites and could be viewed anywhere in the world. Since my former partner's conviction, I've set up a website to hear from others who have been victims of similar online offences. I've been overwhelmed by the number of people who've contacted me after being through the same sort of trauma. I may have been betrayed in the worst way possible, but at least I knew who had done this to me, and he was brought to justice. Tonight, I'll be looking into one of the latest and most sophisticated forms of internet crime, in which organised gangs entrap men and women using webcams, capturing intimate moments with one aim in mind: blackmail. This crime is known as sextortion. You may have heard in the headlines of it being sordid, rude, or a little bit risque, but for many victims, a simple web chat could be life-changing or even fatal. Wayne May runs a website called Scam Survivors. His site monitors and reports on the new ways scammers use the web to exploit people.
Okay, so in a typical Skype conversation, I would see you, you would see me. But obviously I can see you right now, but what you are seeing is this blonde lady and not me. So what I'm doing is using some software which will allow me to manipulate this particular female using pre-recorded footage. So none of it is live, it's all pre-recorded, made up in such a way that you can click certain buttons and get her to do certain actions. The scammer can appear to be anybody. They'll use this to then persuade this person to get naked, get into a compromising position, and record that.
James, not his real name, was online one night when he received a request from someone he didn't know.
It was a Sunday night. I went on Facebook, started to talk to a few of my friends. From there, I got a friend request, and she started talking to me straight away. She was asking me questions. She was telling me she's from France, and then she was telling me she wanted to get naked in front of a camera. I thought, yeah, why not? We started talking on the camera for a bit, for probably roughly about a minute and a half. Then she was trying to get into asking me, do I like having sex? Do you want to do it on camera to camera?
James naively did exactly what his new friend wanted and soon found himself being blackmailed.
After not even 30 or 40 seconds, she just cut down the camera on me and I turned off my camera. Then she wrote something to me on Facebook saying that she's the devil. She wants to ruin my life. She's going to upload the video on YouTube and send it to my friends, my family, my co-workers at my workplace.
James reported the case to the police and was advised not to pay up. Detectives up and down the country, including this team in Bedfordshire, are now dealing with this crime on a weekly basis.
Some of the victims have been told that unless they pay a certain amount of money, the videos will be sent to their Facebook contacts and also uploaded onto YouTube. And they are basically told that unless they pay money, that it will be left online for the whole world to see.
It's a crime which can also have fatal consequences. In 2013, Daniel Perry from Dunfermline took his own life after having an online conversation with someone he believed to be a girl the same age as him. The chat had been recorded by a gang who threatened to show the explicit exchanges to his family and friends unless he paid them off. Within an hour of being blackmailed, he went to the Forth Road Bridge where he jumped to his death.
People come to us absolutely scared for their lives, convinced their life is over. We've had people say they want to kill themselves, and we've had to explain to them, look, it's not worth killing yourself over. It's a scam. You deal with it. This is how you deal with it. But it's not worth taking your life over.
It's a scam with a global reach, and the blackmailers can be anywhere in the world. Interpol, working with the Philippines police, raided these sophisticated sextortion call centres last year. We spoke to Paul Ward, who leads Interpol's cyber centre in Singapore.
Interpol regard this crime as extremely serious. The threat is truly global in nature and affects every single continent of the world and affects every single person in the world that has an internet connection. Criminal groups are making many, many thousands of pounds, dollars, euros in profit, and lots of people's lives and safety are being put at risk.
Back in the UK, an investigator who was undercover with the National Crime Agency says he is shocked by how organised the extortionists are.
In one particular operation, we became aware of the degree of sophistication displayed by an organised crime group. They had recruited IT specialists to engage with victims around the world. In another department, they recruited young men and women, highly educated, and they were used as part of the entrapment process. Then we looked at the money side of things as well, the money coming into this particular country, where they set up their own bureau de change in order that the monies could be obtained very, very quickly, and they could vanish rapidly as well.
When people come to us and say, should I speak to the police? We tell them, absolutely, speak to the police, let them make a report on it. Because the more information the police get, the more likely they are to be able to do something about it.
Unless we know about what is going on and where it's happening, we're not going to be able to bring offenders to justice. In Bedfordshire, in 1 month alone, in March this year, I've had 5 crimes reported. That says to me if 5 men are willing to overcome the definite embarrassment and in some cases possible social implications of reporting it, what is actually the true number of people that have been targeted and are actually victims of this crime? It's probably a lot higher.
I didn't know what to do. I was shaking. I was really shocked. I'm shaking right now, and since then I didn't know what to do. Whatever happens, do not get into a camera-to-camera with a person unless you know them and you've seen them before.
Well, Falami, our guest reporter, is with me now, along with Kate Russell, who presents the BBC's technology programme Click, and Tony Neat from the Get Safe Online organisation. Welcome to you all. Falami, I think it must have taken a lot of courage for you to go to the police when this happened, did it?
It did, but it's something I had to do. I had to, you know, change a negative situation into something positive.
And it felt worthwhile once the conviction...
It definitely felt worthwhile, yes.
Kate, you know, we all live so much of our lives online now. I suppose what we want to do tonight is talk to people about real practical advice that they can take at home. What should people do? What should they not do?
Absolutely. When you're talking about minors, people, you know, who are perhaps under your care and attention, you can use things like kidlogger.net, which is basically a logging piece of software that sits on the computer and monitors what they're doing. You can set it to take a screenshot of webcam meetings and let them know you're doing it, and that will perhaps, you know, put them in a position where they don't get themselves into a compromising position. If you're an adult, first of all, don't get naked with a stranger online.
Yeah, don't do
basically.
that. No.
But if you do fall into a trap and you find yourself becoming the victim of sextortion, whatever you do, don't pay any money. Do not download any software onto a phone, because that will potentially open up your phone to them stealing your contacts, and then they will threaten you with not only the video but the fact that they've got your personal contacts to send it to. And thirdly, remember, it's a business. These people are not, it's not a personal attack on you. It may feel very personal, and if you don't make any profit for them and lock down all your social profiles, they will move on to a new victim.
You're of no interest to them now.
Absolutely.
Tony, you deal with a lot of people who have been, I mean, I don't want to use the word victims, but there we are.
Yes,
they are
yes.
victims. It's on the increase, is it?
It is, that it's an evil, monstrous crime, but it's more than just revenge porn. There's other elements to that, and certainly we have a helpline on the Get Safe Online website for people who are victims of it. But there's other things. We need to make sure we secure our computers, because what can happen is if you have a Trojan, a piece of code put on there, someone hacks into your machine, they can actually turn on your camera, they can turn on your microphone. So treat all cameras as rolling and treat all microphones as on. Put something over the camera.
Cover it up.
Cover it up so you can't be affected by it. Because you've got to remember that it's not just people that you don't know who will extract this and will have revenge porn. It's people that you do know as well. Because what goes online stays online.
We could talk about this all night. Sadly, we don't have the time. Thanks very much for joining us, all of you indeed. And if you'd like another look at Falami's report, or you need information, and we all do, about online safety, head to the Crimewatch website.
Next, this month's CCTV roundup, starting with a frightening raid at a betting shop. It's opening time at a bookies in East London, and this punter thinks he's onto a sure winner. He follows the employee inside, giving us a good look at the tattoo on his neck. But he's not here to place a bet. He's got a knife in his right hand, which he threatens her with, demanding the cash from the till. Terrified, she walks into the office and hands over some notes. But it's not enough. He wants the loose change too. He then calmly walks out, giving us a clear shot of his face. Looks like his number's up. Name, please. Now, keep your eyes on the centre of the screen. This dash cam captures a crowd of football fans in Birmingham last year. Through the car in front, you can see the victim walking along when he's suddenly punched from behind. As he falls to the floor, the attacker brutally stamps on his face before running off. It may only last a few seconds, but this attack left the victim needing metal plates in his face. Who is the unsporting thug responsible? This man in the high-vis jacket waiting at the side of the road in Croydon is a bus driver on his break. He's minding his own business when out of the blue another man comes up to him and headbutts him in the face. The driver tries to defend himself, but the man continues the attack. Police believe the same man was on the victim's bus route earlier that afternoon. He lost his temper when he stumbled as the bus pulled away. Can you help by naming this angry passenger? A wannabe magician walks into a bank in Warrington. But what happens next is no illusion. He hands over £700 and asks for it to be changed into £20 notes. But as the cashier hands it over, our trickster sneaks a wad of the 20s into his left palm. Take a close look again. With the stolen money stashed in his hand, he returns what's left of the £20 notes, asking for his original £10 notes back instead. He puts the stolen cash into his pocket, even wiping any fingerprints off the counter, and leaves the bank with his original £700 plus £460 of stolen notes. If you recognise this cunning con man, you know what to do. Inside a hospital in central London, but this man isn't here for treatment. There's a security door, so he waits for patients to leave before sneaking in. The cameras then pick him up waiting by a lift, but what he's really waiting for is the chance to help himself. Watch as he walks down the corridor empty-handed before reappearing, this time with a bag. It contained a laptop and a phone belonging to a patient who was in surgery. Do you know this low-life thief? Call and text the numbers on screen if you can help, and of course, it's all online.
Knife crime fell slightly last year, but it is still a major problem, particularly in our big cities. So tonight we need to identify these three men following a totally unprovoked knife attack on a 16-year-old boy who's autistic. Well, his mother, Margaret, is here. Margaret, thank you very much for joining us, along with DI Dave Bolton, who's heading up the investigation. Just take us through the aspects of this. What actually happened?
On the 4th of June last year, our victim was walking in Pimlico. He was interrupted by three males. He was minding his own business, and he became scared, and he ran. He was chased down by the three suspects, and one of them put a blade across his neck and cut him across on his neck.
It's really terrifying. It's very, very important. And Margaret, I know this will be difficult for you. We want people at home just to see how horrendous this attack was, and we do have CCTV footage. We're going to show that now, and I'd like you to tell viewers what it is we're watching.
Okay, this is the victim being chased by the three males, and the third one's coming into view now. And then the next clip will go on. It's a very quick clip. It's a very quick act. And the victim stops.
There he is.
And the suspect lunges forward and slashes him across the neck.
In a matter of moments.
It's extremely fast.
Entirely unprovoked. And we want to take a look at these images that you've enhanced of the three guys who are involved. In the centre is the guy who was carrying the blade. Just tell me about these guys.
We believe that they're possibly between 16 and 19. Obviously, we've got a variety of ethnic backgrounds. We've got some very distinctive clothing, though. I'm sure that people will recognise, from these images, they recognise the faces and the clothing.
Margaret, we're going to hear now from your son, who himself has very bravely agreed to talk to Crimewatch, and this is what he has to say about what happened.
They was saying, "What am I looking at?" And then they were being rude as well. But I didn't say a word, I ignored them. But the one in the grey jumper, he ran after me. And then I stopped, and then he stabbed me in the neck, then he ran off.
Margaret, the words of your son. We saw the CCTV. I've never met your son, and it's difficult enough for me to see that. How awful is it for you, knowing what happened to your young boy out walking in the streets, minding his own business?
He's been devastated.
And I suppose explaining to him, because this is a young boy who he's come a very long way, you're giving him little bits of freedom, just explaining to him why. You know, there is no reason why, and I'm presuming he wants to know why.
He does. We can't tell him why, obviously, because
there isn't a
only
why.
They know why they did this. So that makes it harder for him, because we don't know why, and it's really knocked his confidence. He's nervous now about going out, and he's back at square one when it comes to his independence. So it's had a big impact on him long term.
A huge impact on him. Well, your son has also told us at Crimewatch what it would mean to him for these three guys to get caught.
When I go out, I wear my autism card. When I wear it, they'll leave me alone. But if they're not caught, I won't go back where I met them. But when they are, I will.
Detective, thanks very much. The words of your son there at Margaret, we thank you very much for coming onto Crimewatch. We appreciate it. And viewers at home, I'm sure, will want to do the right thing. Just take a look at these three suspects now. I would beg you, if you think you know who they are, then you must get in touch. You saw what they did. You can always speak anonymously to Crime Stoppers. That's fine. Let me give you their number. 0800 555 111.
Well, the phones are extremely busy. Let's grab a quick update with Detective Superintendent Nick Wallen, now who's investigating that shocking rape in Leeds we began the programme with. Nick, what's the latest?
Well, I've been really encouraged indeed. We've had a extremely high number of calls into Crimewatch this evening. We've had a number of names that have been given to us. We've also had a number of calls from police officers, from prison officers, and from people who work within mental health settings. And one from a police officer actually talking about a crime that he investigated. So, you know, some really good stuff. I'm really encouraged.
Nick, wish you the best. Thank you very much. Kirsty, back to you.
Right, still to come tonight on the 40th anniversary of a notorious double murder, we reveal a very substantial new reward.
I was astonished that the two were linked. A complete bunny girl with an ordinary girl in Hounslow.
But first, time for our second batch of wanted faces, starting with 18-year-old Ryan Humpage. Police in Lancashire want to question him in connection with rape, theft and assault allegations. He's known to travel around the UK and has friends in Belfast, Scotland, Blackpool, Northumbria and Northamptonshire. He's also described as dangerous, so if you know where he is, just dial 999. Now, this is 36-year-old Glenn Madden. Police want to speak to him about a large-scale money laundering operation and drug dealing. He's 36 years old and has friends in Greater Manchester, West Yorkshire, Devon and Cornwall. He's also known to travel across Europe and to Dubai. Number 7 tonight is 25-year-old Daniel Taylor. He was given an indeterminate sentence. Escaped from prison in November last year. He has connections to Stockport, Manchester, Liverpool and North Wales and has a distinctive mole on the side of his face. He's known to be violent, so please don't approach him. And finally, we have Alan Smith, though you may know him as Alan Mitchell. He's wanted in connection with a large-scale fraud in which victims were conned out of almost £700,000, with some losing their entire life savings. Smith is 56 and has links across the country. He also uses dating websites, so you may spot him online. If you know where any of these faces are, then get in touch using the numbers on screen. And remember, you can always take another look on the Crimewatch website.
Now, updates on previous cases, starting with news that detectives in Gloucestershire investigating the alleged murder of 32-year-old father of 3, Sean James, have this morning made 2 arrests. Sean was found dead after being run over by a van in Cinderford in the Forest of Dean in December 2002. Police received new information following a Crimewatch reconstruction in December last year, but again are appealing tonight for anyone who hasn't yet spoken to officers to come forward.
Detectives investigating the disappearance of Claudia Lawrence have released on police bail 3 men arrested yesterday on suspicion of her murder. Claudia, you'll remember, disappeared without a trace from her home in York in March 2009. The arrested men are all in their 50s. They're all from the York area. The latest development follows the arrest of a local man in his 50s last month. He is also currently on police bail.
A man who raped and robbed teenage girls at knife point has been jailed 3 decades on from our original appeal. In January 1985, we featured the case of 3 girls who'd been subjected to terrifying sexual assaults by a masked man in Berkhamsted. As a result of the appeal, local man Paul Drinkwater was questioned but released due insufficient evidence. A police review and developments in DNA testing led to 52-year-old Drinkwater being re-arrested. Last month, he was sentenced to 28 years for 2 rapes and 12 months for indecently assaulting the 3rd victim. He was also given 8 years for 2 counts of robbery. Justice finally served.
In October last year, we showed you a pretty shocking CCTV of these men. They are robbing a disabled pensioner in her home in northwest London. Well, as a direct result of the Crimewatch appeal, 3 of the offenders were named and charged. They appeared in court in January and pleaded guilty to the robbery. 24-year-old David Maughan, his brother, 21-year-old Patrick Maughan, and 25-year-old Jamie Butler. They were each sentenced to more than 5 years. And police would still like your help in naming the 4th suspect, so please do call the usual number if you know who this guy is.
And finally, in our last programme, you may remember this, we asked for your help after the heptathlete Kelly Sutherton had a number of her prized medals stolen in a burglary at her home in Sutton Coldfield. Well, amazingly, the day after the appeal, a postman on his rounds struck gold when he found 2 of the medals, including her Commonwealth gold, dumped in a postbox. Now, unfortunately, the burglar hasn't yet been caught. Some medals are still missing, but Kelly is delighted nevertheless.
I do think from the Crimewatch appeal, directly I got my medal returned. If it wasn't for that appeal, I wouldn't be here now with this round my neck. I'd still be searching and looking for my medal, so I'm very thankful I'm wearing this again.
Now, 40 years ago, 2 young women were brutally murdered in London. To this day, mystery still surrounds the killings of Mayfair bunny girl Eve Stratford and Hounslow schoolgirl Lynn Whedon. But the families yearning to know who killed their daughters is as strong as ever, and tonight we can exclusively reveal a new £40,000 reward on offer if you can help finally bring Lynn and Eve's killer to justice.
Back in 1975, the gruesome murders of 2 young women in London shocked the country. 21-year-old bunny girl Eve Stratford's throat was cut and 16-year-old schoolgirl Lynn Whedon was beaten and raped, later dying of her injuries. At the time, there was nothing to suggest the two murders committed on opposite sides of London were linked. But modern DNA techniques show that both were killed by the same man. A man who, to this day, remains at large.
Eve was a very bright girl, very intelligent, and also very beautiful. She spoke German fluently and Russian, so she had the intelligence to go and make something of her life.
Back in the 70s, Eve Stratford led a glamorous lifestyle. She worked as a bunny girl in the Playboy Club in Park Lane, Mayfair, and was an up-and-coming model who loved to socialise. But on Tuesday, March the 18th, 1975, Eve was found murdered at her flat in East London.
I was working in Zaire, and I was told that my daughter had had an accident, and so they flew me home. It was only when I got to London, it was a Sun newspaper with a photograph of my daughter saying she'd been brutally murdered, and that was the first I'd heard about it.
Police immediately launched a full-scale investigation and started to trace Eve's movements on the day of her death. It had been a cold morning. At 7:30, Eve's boyfriend left for work. Her landlord collected their weekly rent at around 9 a.m, and he recalled speaking to Eve.
Oh, hello. Hang on a minute, I'll go and get your money.
That's all right, love. Later that morning, Eve saw her agent in Camden Town and went to a publishing and promotions consultancy in Bayswater. By 3:30, Eve was heading home. She walked her usual route from Leytonstone Tube Station to a flat on Lyndhurst Drive in East London. She was last seen by a neighbour at about 4 o'clock, wearing a floppy hat and carrying a bunch of dried flowers. Half an hour later, a neighbour heard a male and female voice coming from her flat, followed by a thud, then the sound of footsteps. It was 5:20 that afternoon that her boyfriend returned home to find Eve dead.
I had to go and identify the body because my wife couldn't do it. And that was the biggest shock of my life, actually, but there we are.
Eve had been found laying face down with her hands tied behind her back. Her throat had been slashed a number of times from ear to ear.
Well, it destroyed the family. My wife never got over it and died. And it's not often you see on a death certificate broken heart. And that's what on my wife's death certificate.
Despite all the headlines and all the leads the police followed, nothing came of it.
When things like this happen to you, you say, if there's a God up there, please don't let it happen to anybody else.
But it did. Eve wasn't the only victim. The killer struck again just 6 months later. Lynn Whedon was very different from Eve. She was 16 years old and lived at home with her parents in Hounslow, West London.
I would think she was probably almost the perfect daughter that anybody could have had. And I'm not just saying that because she was my daughter. Everybody was, the same opinion.
She would get on with everybody without the fuss and hassle. She would accept most people without any trouble at all.
That night, Lynn had gone out to celebrate her O-level results with friends.
She would always tell me where she was going, but let's look, youngsters, I mean, their age, even now, they will not tell mum and dad exactly what's going on.
At around 11 o'clock that night, Lynn left the Elm Tree pub on New Heston Road and began her journey home with friends. She parted company with them here on the Great West Road, where she crossed over and continued her journey home alone down this alleyway, known as Short Hedges.
She had been told not to come down the alley, not to come home without company. She knew, you know, we were at the end of a phone, she could always phone and somebody would go and pick her up.
She was struck over the head with a heavy object, fracturing her skull. The attacker lifted her over gates into the grounds of a power substation. And dragged her out of sight. He then raped her.
I went to bed as usual, you know, I suppose about 10 o'clock-ish. In retrospect, perhaps I shouldn't have.
I thought that she spent the night at her friend's.
It was 7:30 the next morning when Lynn was spotted. She was still alive and was taken to hospital but never regained consciousness. She died a week later.
I still often think of Lynn when I'm walking the dog, because that was Lynn's. Lynn loves dogs, loved her dog, and I often think of Lynn and talk to Lynn on the way around.
I've always made a point of having some of her things still around. I wouldn't like to, you know, clear everything away, so some of her things are still around. I don't know, you get to the point where where you've got to stop thinking what if, you know, you've got to just carry on with life as it is. That's life, I'm afraid.
Two families had lost their shining stars. It was only 30 years later that these murders were connected to the same killer.
I was astonished that the two were linked. A complete bunny girl in London with an ordinary girl in Hounslow. There was no connection.
Now, initially, it wasn't believed that there was a connection between these two murders, but forensics have allowed you to make that connection. How did you do that, and what were you up against?
Well, it's by constantly reviewing cases, looking at the forensics. We've made that forensic link, and we have DNA, that's the suspect's DNA, that links both of these murders. Now, the important thing for everyone to appreciate is up until 1995, we weren't actually taking DNA from suspects, from people who went to prison, so it's quite possible that the suspect may have been arrested or gone to prison for other matters, and we may not have his DNA. So if someone has that name or suspicion, then we would encourage them to make the call and not assume that we already know their name.
What do we know about the suspect, and what do we know about the two murders?
What we do know is that the killer had a link to the Leytonstone area in March 1975 and to the Hounslow area in September, and in particular to the Hounslow area. He would have been familiar with the alleyway called the Short Hedges. He would have been a white male, aged between 17 and 30 at the time of the murders.
And the murder weapons never found?
No, in both cases, murder weapons were removed from the scene. In the case of Eve, it was a knife, and in Lynn's murder, it was a blunt instrument similar to a piece of lead pipe.
And can you give us a bit more detail of who you feel you're looking for?
Well, we feel that the answer could come from professionals, from psychiatrists, from support, from probation, and even prison officers. Back here 40 years ago, someone may have made admissions to you or a disclosure that you didn't think was relevant at the time, but looking at all this information now, you may have a different view. We would ask you to make that call. And equally, a cellmate may have received a disclosure from a fellow criminal.
Two young women brutally murdered in the space of 6 months by the same man. But 40 years on, and we're still no closer to knowing who he is.
I was hoping that I'd been a granddad, but I wasn't. So, you know, the whole family's gone. When I've gone, the whole family's gone. So I just hope that before I do, that the police, bless them, find out what's happened. We'll know what's happened, but, you know, who did it and why.
Sadly, that was not to be. Since that interview, Eve's father has also passed away. Lynn's parents, now in their 80s, are still waiting for answers.
I was wondering the other day what she'd be like now. But, you know, you can't tell these things. You don't know these things.
I'd love something to happen. If it did, I'd be highly delighted to know that before we die, we found the culprit.
Well, as you can see, it's still very much an open case, and of course there is that very substantial reward of £40,000 for information that leads to the arrest and conviction of the person responsible. So please call now on the usual number if you think you can help, 0500 600 600. Just time now before we go for a last check on the phones. Here's Martin.
We've had so many calls tonight. We've been inundated on calls on that Leeds rape, that poor 18-year-old girl who so brutally attacked. Some really, really strong leads coming in. Detectives are following those up as we speak. They're very heartened on that. The Hatton Garden safety deposit heist, well, we've got the images of the 6 suspects. We need their names, but we've also had a lot of calls on the Hilti drill that was used to carve its way through that concrete wall. Please keep those calls coming in. And wanted face number 1, the first one we showed you, William Kerr, wanted for breaching the terms of his licence. We've had calls and a possible sighting.
Right, that's everything for now, but remember to take a look at the Crimewatch website, which contains several exclusive appeals alongside all of tonight's films and the police incident room numbers if you need those. Our phone lines are going to stay open until midnight tomorrow, but because of the extended news coverage of the election, there's no update programme tonight, I'm afraid. But we will, of course, keep you up to date with the latest developments via Twitter. Follow at BBC Crimewatch. Thank you so much for all your calls tonight. We'll be here again on Tuesday, the 26th of May. But for now, from everyone here, thanks. You make a difference. Good night.